Hey everybody, George Zimney here. Excited to share with you a couple of tips and tricks today to improve your energy, to improve your vibrancy, to create more mental clarity, and just to have a better life and really get you closer to living the life that you're passionate about, the life that you love. So today I'm going to talk to you and share with you a few tips and tricks that are from my personal experience over the last decade of a lot of failures, and a lot of trials and testing on myself and my mind and my body. And we're going to talk today about health. And I have 5 main things that I want to share with you today. So let's get right into it. So number 1, reduce your sugar intake. Reduce your sugar intake. So what happens, and by the way, let me preface, I do not have a nutritionist background. I went to school for business and have always operated a business, been in sales. So I am not a nutritionist. I am not a dietitian. I'm not a physician. What I'm sharing with you today is just from personal experience and some of the books that I've read and the literature that I've studied. So with that being said, you're going to have to experiment on your body and make smart choices for you. And what works for me may not exactly work for you. And there may be different effects, different reactions, different allergies, stuff like that. So these are five things that I do and I try to focus on to maintain good health, which ultimately leads to vibrancy and more energy, better sleep, reduced illness. Health is so critical to life, to living longer. Health is so critical to mental clarity. You know, have you ever had a time where you woke up after a long weekend of just eating poorly? Maybe you had some alcohol consumption, you consumed a lot of caffeine, you didn't exercise, you didn't move around a lot, and you ate foods that really slowed you down. You wake up that next day or a couple of days later, sometimes it lasts a whole week, and your mind is just blah. And that affects your mood, it affects your emotions, it affects your internal drive and passion, it affects your energy, it affects your sleep, and oftentimes we get sick from that. So here are 5 tips to hopefully start to curve you into the right direction to have more mental clarity, more vibrancy, more energy. And that in turn will help you to create and maintain and sustain a more positive relationship with your family, your spouse, your significant other, and also help dramatically if you're a business owner or if you're working within a business and you're really striving to progress within that business. You need clarity and you need more energy. And those 2 things can propel you over time to get to where you want to be in your career and ultimately where you want to be in your life. So number 1 is reduce your sugar intake, as I mentioned a second ago. So what I've learned and what I understand is whenever you eat foods rich in sugar, that's everything from ketchup to an apple, to yogurt. These things are rich in sugar. To candy is an obvious one. When you're introducing a lot of sugar into your body, what your body does is it responds by craving more sugar. So sugar actually starves the brain. So sugar starves the brain, and it tells your brain, I need nutrients. I need nutrients to create energy, to burn into energy and to create energy. And so what ultimately you do is you end up eating more sugar, because sugar very quickly is going to convert very temporarily and short term into something, and your brain says, give me more. I need something quickly because I'm starved. And by the way, a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of the calories and a lot of the foods and everything that you put in your body, a lot of that goes to the brain to nourish the brain, to energize the brain, to let that function at a high capacity. So if you're not feeding your body with good nourishment rich foods, low in sugar, and high in nourishment and the good stuff, then you're going to starve your brain. And when you starve your brain, then your brain tells the body that it needs to consume something quickly just so it can get through and have energy to get through whatever you're doing. And so usually when the brain is starved of nutrients and nourishment, what it does is it forces you to eat the things that have the opposite effect on your energy and your vibrancy and the mental clarity. So reduce your sugar intake. That's really hard especially for Americans, because our foods are loaded and loaded down with sugar, and it's in almost everything we eat nowadays. So just start by being conscious and aware of how much sugar is in what you're consuming. And you don't have to change everything. You can't just stop eating sugar. Your brain and your body would literally freak out and shut down. But you can start to reduce and take stepping stones to getting to a lower sugar intake. And that doesn't mean replacing sugar with all this other bad stuff, like replacing Coca-Cola with Diet Coca-Cola. There's certain things that are not actually healthier because they have less sugar. So just be mindful of that. And you might start by doing some research into what sugar really does to the brain and to the body. And because you'll get a lot more clarity and have a lot more energy if you reduce your sugar intake. So number 2 is limit your caffeine. This is a really big one. We all have heard of the caffeine crash, that midday crash. You get the headache, you feel like you're dragging. When you eat foods that actually feed the brain and feed the body with the right nutrients, your body creates energy, and then you'll need less caffeine. So they kind of go hand in hand. If you can start to taper down the caffeine, and I'm a coffee drinker. I drink a cup to 2 cups a day. I drink organic beans. It's good coffee. The Folgers stuff, the coffee from the shelf that's in the can, it's just pumped with a bunch of bad stuff. I don't encourage anybody to drink that. I encourage you to research your coffee as well. You don't have to be crazy about it, but know what's going in your body, I guess is the point. And if you can reduce your caffeine, that will actually boost your energy over time. Your body may go into a little bit of shock the first week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. But remember, it takes many weeks, sometimes months to form a habit. And so you just taper it down to where it's in a manageable amount. I don't recommend more than a cup to 2 cups a day of caffeine or coffee. And look up the equivalent of that in whatever type of caffeinated drink that you're consuming. So reduce your caffeine. Number 3 is increase your fats. So this goes against our standard, the way that we've been trained all the way from grade school all the way through college. They say decrease fat, and when you decrease fat, you'll look better, you'll feel better. And I'm telling you the opposite. And this is through a lot of literature and a few books that I've read. Increase your fat intake, but here's the catch: make sure you're consuming the right fat. Make sure you're consuming the right fat. Eating potato chip fat and the high cholesterol and stuff like that is not good. So that's not good already. But if you consume the right fat, what fat actually does, as I've learned, is it creates more energy, and it feeds the brain and it feeds the body, and then it actually burns off if it's the right fat. So very high fat or foods that are rich in the right fat. Some of my staples are avocado. So I have 2 daughters, 2 girls, Adeline's 1 and Raylan's 4, and my wife Stephanie. And I kid you not, we will eat on average an avocado to an avocado and a half, each of us, per day. And we freak out when they're not really in season, and you go to the store to buy your 8, 10, 12 avocados for the next few days. And we're so addicted to these things. We always buy organic. And whenever we go to the store, and they are hard as a rock, and when you cut into that thing, you're having to saw it open. But we still eat the avocado. You do not want to get the avocados that are mushy. When things start to rot and start to become mushy, there's a lot of mold and there's a lot of stuff that's now in that fruit or in that vegetable. And you don't want to consume mushy fruits and vegetables because there's a high allergies, and your body just doesn't respond to mold very well. So you want to get them when they're not soft but they're not hard. They're kind of right in the middle there. If there's brown spots, you need to cut those off. Those are not good for your body. So we love avocados. The right type of beef is good for you. You want to limit how much red meat you put in your body, obviously. I think we all know that. But most of us do consume red meat. And if you do, I'm not saying cut that out. I do once or twice a week. But I buy grass-fed, organic, and I just make sure that it's free of all the additives that the normal shelf red meat has pumped into it, the hormones and all the pesticides and just junk that they put into a lot of foods nowadays. So make sure it's either organic, grass-fed, It's a little more expensive, but again, we're talking about making more money with your career because you have more vibrancy and energy, and you want to propel yourself to the next level and progress. And we're talking about having better relationships with your family and more energy to spend with your kids or your significant other or your hobbies or whatever you do. And what's the cost of that? What's the value to your life of that? And to pay an extra $1 for a pound of grass-fed beef versus non-grass-fed beef, it's not going to hurt you. We'll just put it that way. So increase your fat. So, a lot of the red meats are high in fat. Butter, the right butter, grass-fed butter, believe it or not, is really good for you. And so what we do, and I learned this through some literature in a book that I read, but what we do, my wife and I do, is we literally will take two tablespoons of butter from the stick, and it's a very high quality butter. We'll take 2 tablespoons, put it in a blender, make a fresh cup of organic coffee, pour the hot coffee in the blender, and mix it all up. We have butter coffee in the morning every other morning in my household. And what that butter does is it feeds the brain, it feeds the body, it burns off, and when it burns, it's creating energy. And so it's not stored as fat, but you have to make sure you're consuming a high quality butter. So number 4, eat loads of veggies, but make sure they're the right veggies. Once again, some of the best veggies, broccoli is way up there. Cauliflower is way up there as far as nutrients go, and low on the mold and the toxins and all the other stuff. Green beans. So the really rich green veggies, the cauliflowers, are great veggies to consume on a daily basis. Now, the hardest part for me is I travel a lot with my company. And so it's hard to, when I travel for 3 or 4 days to Texas, Lubbock, Texas, or St. Louis, Missouri, or Kansas City, it's hard for me to bring 3 servings of broccoli with me. And by the way, the other thing that you want to make sure you do, you don't want to eat the vegetables raw. You don't want to eat them raw. You want to lightly steam them. And when you steam them, it cooks out a lot of the bad stuff that's in the vegetable through the process that it was grown, manufactured, and shipped. And so make sure that you lightly steam them. You can bake them. If you bake them, I encourage you to bake them around 300. You never want to cook anything really over 300. If you need to bake it a little longer to get it to the texture that you desire, that's fine. The same thing goes with the beef. You never want to cook beef and steaks at a very hot temperature because it introduces a lot of bad stuff into that meat. And matter of fact, grilling and charbroiling and things like that are really high in toxins because of that process of cooking it. Now, my wife and I and our family we live in Missouri. We frequent Kansas City, and obviously that makes us pretty big into barbecuing. But since I've really started to understand what the grilling process does to the meat and all the bad stuff that's introduced into that food, we've started to reduce the grilling that we do in our household on the outside grill. So anyways, I'm not saying stop grilling. You may be a fanatic of Kansas City barbecue or of brisket and all that stuff. And hey, if you love it, if it makes you happy, go for it. I'm just saying, just be aware. Again, just be aware and knowledgeable of what that process does to the food and what that's introducing into your body. And especially if you have kids, make sure you understand what these foods are doing to your kids' bodies. Because what our parents taught us isn't wrong, but we now understand what's actually going into foods, and there's so much more of a complex manufacturing process as they grow foods and manufacture the foods that we make with GMOs and all this fake stuff they put in it. And if it's fake, it's not good for you. So just, again, make sure you're aware of what you're putting into your body. So eat a lot of veggies. And then the last but not least is exercise. For you, if exercise is power walking, then just power walk. Put it into your weekly schedule. I encourage 4 to 5 hours a week, at least 20 to 30 minutes a day. If you have the knees and the muscles to support sprinting, one of the best things that you can do, instead of working out in the gym for 3 hours in a day, or instead of running 6 miles every third day. If you're preparing for a triathlon or a marathon, or you're a bodybuilder, or that physique is really important, by all means keep doing what you're doing. But if you're like me and you just want to maintain optimal health, good energy, vibrancy, clarity, and you're not going into a professional sport, you're not competitive in the races and the marathons and stuff like that of the world. If you're like me and you're just trying to maintain that healthy physique and you want to look okay and feel good, and that's kind of where you are in life, maybe you don't have time to do all the competitive stuff. You may desire to, but you just don't have the time. That's my situation right now. And in that case, sprinting for run 100 yards, 200 yards, rest for 30 seconds, and do that 15 times. And so interval sprinting is so good on the cardiovascular system and the muscle system, and it's a great way to maintain your physique and feel really good. And I'm talking about sprint like somebody's chasing you. Sprint like there's a leopard that's chasing you down and you're out in the wild in Africa. Sprint with that speed and that effort and that urgency to get from point A to point B, and then rest just for a short period of time, and then do it again, and then do it again, and do that for 15 to 20 minutes, and let that be your workout. If you're really big into weights, and I do this as well, I have a personal trainer that just kicks my butt 2 to 3 days a week. So if you're into weights and you need someone to drive you to get to that next level of fitness, then I don't encourage the everyday person like myself to spend 2 hours in the gym lifting heavy weights, resting for 2 or 3 minutes, lifting heavy weights. You can get so much greater benefit out of a more of a focused circuit training type of regimen, where it's 30 to 40 minutes of non-stop activity and exercise. You can incorporate weights, you can incorporate your own body weight with pull-ups and push-ups and things of that nature, but move and keep the heart rate up for 30 to 45 minutes while incorporating the weights and the other various exercises. Do it organized, know what you're doing if you don't have a trainer going into that workout, but you'll have so much greater health benefit and gain from that 30 to 45 minutes than you had from the 2 hours of lifting heavy weights, resting, chatting, hanging out, lifting again. Again, I'm not saying if you like the process and that's a hobby of yours to spend 2 hours in the gym, by all means, that's phenomenal. Keep doing it. But for the everyday individual that runs a business, that wants to progress in their career, that has an extremely busy household, family, lots of hobbies, needs the energy and the clarity, doesn't have the time to spend hours a day working out or preparing the food, these are just some tips for you. So, hope you enjoyed some of what I've shared with you today. This is just from the heart and from the experience that I've had in my life. And hopefully you can implement something and have more energy, clarity, vibrancy, and live a happier and more fulfilled life. All right, for now, we'll talk to you next time. See you, everybody.